4, 3.
I'll call this meeting of the Johnson City City Commission to order for this Thursday, October 21st. We're meeting in the Commission chambers of the Municipal and Safety Building. And with the meeting called to order, I'll invite Pastor Donald Mushayamunda from First Christian Church to come and lead our invocation. If you'll all please stand.
Shall we pray? Father, we come to you tonight to honor you because you are God, and that before you there is no other. We recognize that you take precedence in everything in life. Tonight we want to give you precedence. You speak to us words of counsel and wisdom. You declare through your word by the mouth of David that unless the Lord builds a house, the laborers build in vain. Unless the watchman, God watches over the city, the watchmen watch in vain. Tonight we present to you the commissioners. We thank you that they have been called to be fathers and mothers of this city. We thank you for their love and commitment to the welfare of this city and its people. We pray that you may endow them with uncommon wisdom. We pray for the Holy Spirit to be their partner. We pray that they may bring a sense of hope and comfort in these difficult times. We pray, oh God, that through them, the economy of this city could move forward. We pray that they be a source of inspiration to love and graceful relationships between different peoples of this city. We thank you, Father, for all those who have called upon them to watch over them, that they may obey, even as they spell out solutions for the city. Allow them the grace to be able to speak with the authority that is divine. Thank you for this session. We pray that you be present. We pray that we may feel your presence and that you may speak. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You'll face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, your first order of business is consideration of the minutes from your meeting held on Thursday, October the 7th.
Are there modifications or a motion for approval? Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Commissioner Murphy. We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor, at this time, there will be a presentation of a proclamation recognizing the kickoff of the 2021 United Way campaign.
Sir. So I'll read this proclamation, and I'll let you know I don't write them, so if there are too many words, let Julia know. So, whereas the United Way of East Tennessee Highlands serving Johnson City is a catalyst for community impact and economic empowerment, advancing the common good and creating opportunities for a better life for all by focusing on three key building blocks of health, education, and financial stability. And whereas the United Way movement creates long-lasting community change by addressing the underlying causes of problems that prevent progress in these areas. And whereas the United Way of East Tennessee Highlands serving Johnson City takes responsibility for solicitation and receipt of contributions and allocates and distributes those funds to partner agencies after proper budget study using local and national accountability standards. And whereas the United Way of East Tennessee Highlands serving Johnson City promotes efficiency by providing a single means through which contributions can be made to multiple agencies using cooperative appeal to reduce the expense of raising funds and funds independently. And whereas the United Way of East Tennessee Highlands serving Johnson City has officially begun its annual fundraising campaign, Building a Bridge to the Future, and invites all citizens to join them in this effort. Now, therefore, I, Joe Wise, the mayor of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim October 21st, 2021 as the United Way of East Tennessee Highlands serving Johnson City Local Kickoff Day. So thank you very much. So I'll pass the microphone. If I give it to you, if I give it to you, will you promise not to give it to Lester?
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. The support of our city is so important to do what we do and to support our nonprofits, and that's what we're here for. We're here to support our nonprofits and to make sure that every person in our community has the ability to strengthen their health, education, and financial stability.
Thank you, Leslie. Mayor, commissioners, those who are watching on the television, and all those who are out here. I'm rather brazen, as you all know. So one of the things that when I was serving as president, praise the Lord, amen. That's all I got. Well, Mayor, since you are, don't throw the money away now, because you are the mayor, we'll let you pass that giving basket, because that's what it represents. It represents an opportunity within our community to make the lives of children, adults, and our seniors through health, education, and all those opportunities so that their lives can be made better. As you have the opportunity, please give to this organization, which gives an opportunity for over 40 agencies to actually serve the needs within our community. And as you do that, our community is going to be a better place. Our commissioners are giving these members of our campaign team, our president, pass it over there. Right, amen. Yeah. Amen. I'm a pastor of a church, and if I don't know, as a pastor of a church, if I don't know how to raise money, then I shouldn't be pastoring. So we're going to be passing, and as the opportunity, please take the opportunity to bless our community through this campaign. We are going to raise in excess of $1.25 million. And as we raise those dollars, there's so many people whose lives are going to be made better. During this campaign, we've invited back campaign chairs who have been successful down through the years. Under Leslie's leadership as our president, we're going to see great things happening to our United Way organization. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Peterson, and I ain't going to say what I was going to say. Janet, thank you all for being here tonight and giving us the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of our people. Amen? Amen. Amen.
Thank you all for what you do.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody.
I'll let you know whether you beat the other mayor's record.
You got movers and then you got two shakers right there.
Well, you got that right. Okay, your next order of business is a presentation of the remote worker campaign update from Netta and Alicia here. The lady with all the good news.
She left her phone, so I was trying to get it to her. Good afternoon or good evening, how are you all?
Good.
I'm Alicia Phelps, I'm with Northeast Tennessee Tourism Association, and while I'm pulling this up, I will also introduce, we do have our team with us tonight that are part of executing this program. We have Mitch Miller and Alicia Summers with Northeast Tennessee Economic Partnership and Brenda Whitson with Visit Johnson City. So I wanted to quickly give you all another quarterly update. This is the second one that we've done about the remote work program. So I have some results I think you all be really excited about. So we are now in phase 2. We began in June. July 1st through September 30th are the results that I'll be reporting for you all this evening. You can see so far with our reach that we have been able to reach over 500,000 people with our campaign, and that actually is an international reach. We've had over 4,100 clicks, and we were currently advertising in phase 2 to Dallas, Chicago, San Francisco, and San Jose. Emerging markets, however, that we found came out of Orlando, Nashville, Charlotte, and Atlanta. On the website, we saw 5,200 come in, and so almost, well over half of the folks that came in through the website were clicking, so that's great. Just a note that the emerging markets that we saw through those were also really heavy markets that we use in for travel and tourism, so it made a lot of sense to see that come through there. Moving on into phase 3, that will be now. So we're currently advertising in phase 3, and that will run through December. A potential reach is 1.2 million, so we really ramped it up. The markets now are Chicago, Dallas, and Nashville. And you'll note that San Francisco and San Jose have been removed. While we did receive some applicants from those markets, we really felt that our dollars were better spent, and especially in the Nashville market. It quickly emerged out of phase 1. We weren't advertising there. We started seeing lots of applicants. So we put those dollars in there to see how that would work for us. And while we also saw several applicants from Western North Carolina, which would make a lot of sense, that's really strong for us with this campaign. We didn't see the need to invest any dollars in there because we're doing really well there already. And then also note that we've added LinkedIn and streaming TV to our advertising markets. Very affordable LinkedIn and streaming TV was something that we were looking at definitely for phase 2, and we're excited to see that. We'll be running our ads that we showed last time, the video 15-second ads with those. Just a few notes. Our campaign definitely picked up some steam. We were being recognized nationally as a top destination for remote workers. So you'll see our most recent notes coming primarily out of September from LinkedIn and LinkedIn News and Tech Republic. We were noted among the top 4 small cities in both of those articles. Again, same thing looking over on the next slide. NBC Make It recognized Johnson City as a great place to work remotely from last month, and then LinkedIn continues to share their content about the Remote Work Johnson City program. And I couldn't leave out that our own Miss Brenda Whitson presented on behalf of the program at the Tennessee Governor's Conference on Tourism last month in September in Murfreesboro about the program, and we were light years ahead of others. No one else is doing this in the state yet, so at the level that we are, so it was great to be able to showcase what we've done so far, and they're definitely watching and learning from what we're doing here. Internationally, as you know, Creative Energy is responsible for the design and placement of the advertising. They were recently awarded a Graphis Gold Award for the promotional video that we're going to be using in TV streaming. This award is a really big deal in the advertising world, and it was an international award, so we're really proud of them for that. Okay, let's get down to some numbers. So our applicants, so far, as of October 6th, we had received 124 applicants. 95 were eligible, and we have actually accepted 10, and I can say 3 of them have already moved here, and the rest are working on that, so we give them 6 months to do so. You can see the round 1 potential impact, that is the return of the investment there. Locations, I won't name all the states, but you can see there it's across the country that we're seeing folks come from. The top industries, as we kind of noted at who we were advertising to, and this is very relevant with that: finance, IT, professional, technical services, healthcare, and wellness. We have already hosted one FAM tour with accepted applicants. We did that in September. That included a welcome reception, dinner, and we provided weekend itineraries for them to get familiar with the area as they relocated to the Johnson City, Washington County area, and also included remote works tours and one-on-ones with current remote workers that already live here. So that was a really great time. And then we're looking at a tentative November date to do our second round of applicants with that. That is all I have for our Q2 update, or our second quarter update with you all. What questions can I answer for you this evening?
Just be curious as to where are they moving and what kind of housing are they finding here?
Absolutely. We found that most of them are purchasing homes. What they're doing is they're leasing the home, finding a home to quickly short-term rental lease while they're looking for homes if they're not able to purchase one immediately. So I can't say, for the 3 that have already moved here, they are within the city limits of Johnson City. We haven't had anyone outside of the city limits as of yet. So in terms of the exact neighborhoods, I know one of them was in the downtown area. So it was really interesting to see kind of what they were going for, whether it's a suburb area or it's deep in the city.
I know there'd been interest in other municipalities partnering with us. Is that still?
I know there's still conversations. We haven't had anyone 100% jump on board yet, but we have had quite a bit of interest from other cities and counties within the Northeast Tennessee area on this program for sure.
And is there more like assimilation or whatever type of like meet and greets that as they move in that they'll
Absolutely. So a requirement, that we're not just opening the doors and we're not just selecting folks blindly. They go through quite the process to even be selected. But one of the requirements, one, they have to stay here at least a year. Most of them are, the ages vary. Most of them are considering retiring here. But then they also have to attend at least 2 remote work social events, and provide information where they have been involved in the community, whether it's serving on boards or volunteerism as well. So they have to provide that by the end of the year before they can complete the program.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Yeah, I noticed that you brought it to our attention as well. You took off San Francisco off the list, and there was another area. Can you talk a little bit more about that as to why you made that decision?
That is a very, very expensive market. And I wouldn't say we were spending half of our advertising dollars allotted for that run there, but we were spending quite a bit. And while we did receive applicants from those markets and other outlying areas, we really felt that in order to actually get a positive return on the dollars we were spending, as well as to maybe open it up to some other cities, like you saw Nashville and Orlando on there. We're definitely looking at some of those other ones that we had mentioned, and we went ahead and put dollars into Nashville. We just really felt strongly that we would see our dollars work better for us if we spent them in markets that were already seeking attention from us or already interested in it, and we weren't even advertising there. So I hope that answers that.
Thank you.
What's the average salary you're seeing of these applicants?
They, it's really quite the range. I would say the average would be above 100,000. So it's been really fun being able to meet these people. They are all ages. We've definitely learned a lot about remote work, and it's been something that businesses have been doing for many, many years.
I'll just say this real quick too. I'm sorry, I think it's a great story. So there was a couple.
Who are you, sir? Strange mystery man with a mask.
Sorry,
You could
Mitch
take
Miller, 1406 Lester Harris Road, Johnson City, Tennessee, resident as well. We had a couple that was part of the program as well, and came in, was part of the event, the meet and greet. Ran into them at the Tree Street yard sale. They also wound up going to Science Hill. I believe you met them that night, the Science Hill football game that Friday, and somehow found their way at the race that Sunday. So they really got acclimated pretty quickly and met a lot of great folks. So those are individuals I think that immediately are going to get truly tapped into the community, and that was really a good success story from the first round. Sorry.
Yeah, I will add, they are passionate and they love the area. It is an energy that is something that we love to see, and it's been just a great process so far. So thank you all so much for the support.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
And on a related note, our next topic.
Well, I was just trying to think, is this Lester again?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. At this time, if we could ask Mr. Dykes and Stacy to come forward for a
But
presentation.
as they come
from BrightRidge.
forward, there is a strong connection between our remote worker initiatives and what the folks from BrightRidge are coming to talk about. And I think to not draw attention to that connection is to miss connecting a couple of dots. So
Thank you very much for that, and I promise to talk longer than Lester. I'll just give you the heads up.
did you bring a basket? I'm out of money. Did you bring
I didn't bring a basket, but I got a big pocket.
Okay.
And if I could approach, I got a map here that might help you all better as you do his presentation. And actually, I really appreciate you, Mayor Wise, is tying together the remote worker and what we are doing at BrightRidge, because we have had folks call into our facility and ask where the high-speed broadband is at, because that's where they want to start looking for houses. I thought I talked loud enough, but do I have to start over at the beginning? Okay, I just want to be sure. Ma'am, I've got one for you. But again, tonight, we wanted to get with you with some of the federal dollars and money that's coming through. There is a great opportunity to expand the broadband quicker, great opportunity to impact the city very, very fast with the rollout and extension of broadband. And so what we are looking to do is to just a presentation tonight to show you what some of those opportunities are. I thank Mr. Peterson for setting this up to allow us to be here this evening. Again, they always say bring the brains with you, so I've brought the brains to do the presentation. I'm going to sit down, and I know Pete appreciate this, and be quiet until the very end. And just like Lester, at the very end, I will get up and we'll find a big basket and make an ask. But again, this is a opportunity that we think will have a huge impact on remote worker, huge impact on telehealth, a huge impact on all aspects of the community from high income to low income, but an opportunity that we really would want to ask the commission to consider as it can impact Johnson City. And I also would say when we look at impacting Johnson City, one of the things we look at is Johnson City, I feel and believed and have lived, growing up here, is the leader in the region. And I think this is an opportunity for it to continue to be so. And the opportunity to do some things that other communities would really love to have the opportunity to see and do. So as much as I love to talk, Stacy, I will sit down and introduce to you all Stacy Evans, our Chief Broadband Officer, and let him talk away. And if you have any really tough questions, he said he'd refer them to me, so don't ask tough ones.
All right, good evening. I'll take just a couple of moments to give you an update of where we are on the broadband expansion for BrightRidge. And the adage is a picture's worth 1,000 words. This case, a picture's worth several thousand homes served. So if you look at this represents phase 1 and 2, going from the ETSU campus area all the way up to the intersection of North Roan and I-26, and then west of that. Each one of those yellow dots you see represents a home or business that actually actively has our services today. So it kind of gives you a little visual of that. And that is about 5,600 homes and businesses, represented a population impact of about 13,000 today, growing between 70 and 100 a week. So we're seeing great eagerness to obtain those services. And here's phase 3. That would take you out on the western part of Johnson City out to gray. Same thing. The yellow dots represent the active customers. And just remind you that we have built this by loans from the electric division to the broadband division. We did receive some grants last year to build out some rural parts of Washington County and Bowmantown, Pleasant Valley. That was very successful. I'll give you a quick update on that in a moment. But with this, we looked back in 2018 and said, we surveyed the customers in the area, residential, business, government, and said, is there a need for additional broadband services? And unanimously, just about, we heard yes, there was. There needed competition, needed additional services. And then, so that was the reason going business. In addition to that, we saw that it was a new revenue opportunity for electric to remove some of that pressure that would result in electric rates increasing. And that has proved to be true and work, because just in last year alone, that the fiscal year ended in June of 21, we were a $2.5 million benefit to electric division. That was from shared salaries, that was from lease of fiber, that was from lease of building space, that was from pole attachments. So that will grow each year, but 2.5 million just in last year, and we're in a very much an early stage of growing our network out. So we're on phase 4. This is the area south of Market Street and north of Cherokee Road. We're about 50% complete on that construction today. Those areas in purple are just about complete. The ones in yellow are under construction. We expect to turn the first customers up in these locations in December this year, and to finish the entire area by February of 22. So that's come along very well. That's one of the smaller sections that we're building, but it still passes over 4,000 customers with services and opportunities for fiber, about 4,762 total there. So you might say, if we're looking at an opportunity for a partnership, do we have examples of success? And we do. We worked with the state of Tennessee and Emergency Broadband last year, and we constructed the areas you see in the red there, and each yellow dot is a customer served, active customer. That was about 2.5 month project that we rushed through. We built 70 miles of fiber. We went past 650 customers that previously had no broadband opportunity. We heard from people in those areas that said, you know, I moved here, bought a house, but I can't do my work because I'm having to drive up to a retail, a Walmart or a Target or somewhere and sit in the parking lot and do my work. So they were ecstatic to get opportunities to work from home and, of course, educate from home. And we saw from that, we're able to build out wireless, public wireless infrastructure, 28 locations in the county. And the great thing with all this is we come under budget. We had $3,089,000 planned to build it, and we built it for $2,365,000. So that matching money from the state, we didn't require all of it. In addition to that success, by building those connections, we've got another 1,050 that BrightRidge is committed to serving as well. So that grant for 650 expands to 1,700 people. So that's just an example of partnerships we think can work really well. We want to kind of provide a proposal here of how the city could consider investing into this partnership. And looking at this, we found that the pandemic has really exposed the depth of digital divide. We see that it is not an equal opportunity for all homes and businesses in our region to have access to that. And this was interesting. Almost 50% of the lowest income Tennesseans, below $20,000 a year, do not have access to broadband. That's kind of surprising. 50% of those low income. Often that's because they can't afford it, but sometimes because it's not available as well. Also, we saw that about 58% of students said they use their internet at home on a daily basis just to do their homework and schoolwork. 17% in a national study said they're unable to complete homework because of lack of internet access. We looked at some digital literacy outcomes and saw that those with no home internet access, only 47% of those students went on to a secondary education program, versus those with a slower internet, 60% went on, and those with a faster home internet, 65%. So we can see a correlation there with access to these tools. This was pretty surprising. 82% of middle-class jobs now require digital skills, computer skills, internet type of skills that they would use. So that's grown 4% since 2014. And the FCC, they consider currently 25 meg by 3 a broadband service. That's been reviewed and likely to be upgraded something higher. But BrightRidge, what we're offering, our lowest service is a 200 meg symmetric service. So we have seen that, and it was very good, the timing, as you said, the remote working opportunities. It's been identified that those low upstream packages are not typically sufficient for people working from home or doing education from home. So the higher the bandwidth the opportunity, the better it is. And we go up to 10 gig symmetric as well. But we also participate in a program with the FCC called Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, and this can provide up to $50 a month in assistance towards that internet cost for those eligible. And that could be low income, that could be those who have been displaced by jobs during the COVID pandemic times and other things. And if anybody's interested in looking at that, they can go to fcc.gov/broadband benefit and look at that. You can apply online. And again, that can pay, our lowest package is $49.99, so that can pay 100% of their internet service if they qualify. And from what we understand, that is planned to be subsidized for about 7 years or more. So it looks like the money's there for some time. So we realized that the commission could choose to use your ARP money or American Rescue Plan money for various opportunities. But should you choose to invest some of that in broadband, the U.S. Treasury Department released just at the end of September some guidelines, and they said if you do this, we would like you to build networks that are at least 100 meg symmetrical. Obviously, our lowest is 200 meg, so we're glad that we surpassed that. They encourage you to use it for last mile. That means to serve customers' homes, not just for middle mile. They also want to prioritize fiber investments in advanced technologies. And again, we're one of few communities in the country that has 10 gig services, so we definitely meet those criteria. And they also want to prioritize projects with networks owned by local governments, nonprofits, and cooperatives. They said this reduces the pressure to generate profits by those that are for-profit, of course. And with this, there are multiple opportunities. One is that in unserved areas where there is no broadband, that would be more the county, there are state grants that can be providing 70%, and then they're encouraging local governments to provide the 30% match. In the case of Johnson City, it does not meet that unserved in any region that we have, but there are some underserved conditions, so the ARP money can be used for that. So this is just give you a view of an area that we would like to present, and the area locations in red are either completed or will be by the end of January in the case of the one at the very bottom. So those are done. That's phase 1, 2, 3 being the top left, and the very bottom's 4. The ones in orange will be future phases to come. What's in yellow there is what we're proposing, and the green push pin would identify this commission location today, this municipal building. So kind of give you a perspective where that's at. So on the west side, that's close to North Rome and East Oakland intersection. On the very southeast side, that's in Carter County there, where the city goes in that area, Mayflower Road and I-26 crossover. All right, so we pulled some information, and you all have seen this before from Dr. Kim Hale and Lottie Rhines. I think they presented that early development instrument data. And what we saw was within the city, you can see Zone 6, the very dark orange, and also Zone 28. Those are two primary areas that saw the highest poverty area within the city. So we looked at that, and we have our proposal, this orange here, shows that area, but also the entire proposed build location, yellow and orange together. So that plus what we've already built in Zone 28 would cover all of that highest 5th percentile of poverty issue with fiber to the home. So that accompanied with the emergency broadband, we think makes a very good proposition for those people to obtain services. The second data statistics we got from the EDI was that the areas you see in the dark, very dark green, which particularly in 6 and 4 and 41, those actually were recognized through a study with the school system, identified students that had a high vulnerability, particularly in areas of cognitive development and language. And so with that, we see that this proposed area covers 6, 4, and portions of 41. So we see it really hits two areas of need within the city. And so this is a quick video just to show you what some of that area looks like that we propose to build. And this one's Lakeview Avenue looking towards Watauga Road. And this is also Lakeview looking toward Oakland Avenue. Fairview Avenue looking towards Oakland. And Memorial Park looking towards Keystone. videos, it's easy to see that it is a beautiful area and why people are interested in moving here, doesn't it? So that just kind of gives you an overview of the area. This is the proposal, and you have a printed copy of this. It shows 7 different sections in the proposed that could be broken apart, realizing that your funding can come in 2 different cycles. But should the commission choose to partner with this, it easily could be that the area on the west side, or here to the right of that black line, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4, could be sponsored for about $1.475 million. Everything on the left side would be about $2.4 million as an opportunity. And then the areas shaded in the aqua blue color, those are already complete for fiber, and those in yellow would be the proposed area to build. So how does this benefit Johnson City? That might be the question that comes to mind. Is it worth this investment? And we feel like this, again, accompanied with the program that we have with the EBB, Emergency Broadband, really addresses those areas of need. And again, if you look, the green push pin identifies where we're sitting tonight. But we think that really addresses that area and can help those residents. Secondly, this helps extend this broadband out to the city of Johnson City to make it attractive for retaining and attracting additional people to the area, especially high-skilled workers, businesses. And you know, attracting is one thing, but retaining is something else, isn't it? When we think about ETSU and Milligan and the students that come out and see a lot of those people move away, but to give them opportunity to compete. And we've heard from some people move to the area that chose their home based upon where they can get the higher speed services. And it makes a difference. So we're glad to be part of that. This overlay here in pink shows the city limits. So that red is what we will have at the end of this. Should the city help fund this, we think we can pull this in by 2 years from the original plan and have it completed in 2026. And that, let me do that again, that pink area is the city. You see, we very well cover that, the city areas, and the ones that are not, some of those are like some areas that are not developed and up to the northeast or northwest and so forth. Okay. So here's an example of some success. Chattanooga, EPB, they've done really well as a high-tech hub, pushing their 1 gig. Of course, we're pushing 10 gig. We've leapfrogged that. But you can see they were rated in PC Magazine as the #1 location in the United States to work from home. That's pretty amazing because of the infrastructure investment they made there. This was interesting, too. PC Magazine picked up that Jonesboro ranked them #5 in the nation as well because we have built fiber through there in those areas. And so they definitely get some recognition from it. But you can see what a difference that does make in attracting and retaining talent and people that want to work from home. A couple more statistics here. Broadband Now says that 56% of the U.S. can get gigabit internet service, but it's not always affordable. That's a challenge. And it doesn't always give you upload speeds you need. So we see that as a challenge. That's the reason we've launched all symmetrical. Upload equals the download when none of the competitors today have that option in the region. And then you can see also the increase during COVID, the upstream needs increased by 121%. That growth happened because people were needing that. 40% of workers, they said they want to continue to work from home. So those that went home to work, they want to stay there if they can. Some of them willing to change jobs just to do that. 55% of businesses globally are offering some capacity of remote work. That may be a portion of the week or it could be a full-time position. So I would welcome any questions or discussions.
Stacy, I think you answered the question of how this would pull up. I mean, we have all phases laid out, but what you're saying is if we invest some of our ARPA money, we could pull that up by almost 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think commissioners, particularly in some of these underserved areas that you've identified, there may be home employment opportunities for people through the internet that they don't currently have access to. And so I think there's all sorts of cases for providing the infrastructure for all of our residents who might be able to take advantage of that and find work through remote jobs that are available.
Sure.
One thing that I will add to this, you've heard me talk for some time now, the ongoing discussions about the need for child care. this really opens the door for people that are forced to not work or go into work because they can't afford childcare and to go into work. This would really open the door for a lot of those folks to be able to stay home and take care of their children and be working from home and be productive to the local economy. And in one of our meetings a couple of months ago, we met with several of the daycare providers and preschool folks. In 2 facilities in Johnson City, there was, between the 2 of them, there were over 500 people on a waiting list to get into preschool. So there's a tremendous need out there for preschool and daycare, and I think this is a great opportunity to help those folks be able to stay gainfully employed while addressing their child needs.
And I guess I would add to it, I had a conversation about a year ago with a teacher, not specifically in Johnson City, but the experience would apply here like it would anywhere else, talking about students when we had to suddenly go to remote learning. And some students had the benefit of living in households with multiple computers and good internet connections, and others were relying on their single mother's 5-year-old iPhone as the only source of connectivity to the internet. And so if we really care about equal outcomes, that needs to matter. And I think the EDI has shown us where it is. Your map certainly reiterates that. We can buy all the Chromebooks in the world for our students, but if we send them somewhere they can't connect to anything, what do they have?
Try to get transportation to a parking lot where
Yeah,
they have free Wi-Fi.
to a Starbucks
Yeah.
or a Taco Bell or wherever it is, but it's enough of a hurdle already, and there's an opportunity here. Other questions? We thank you.
Thank you.
As a point of direction for staff, we've had several requests come forward and ideas about ways to invest transformationally into our community with the ARPA money. So looking for a little direction, we're going to recap the request with a summary of what each one of these investments would mean to the community and come back to you within the next couple of weeks and for you to consider and hopefully start making some decisions on how you would like to spend some of that money. Invest some of that money, excuse
Invest
me.
it, right. Right.
Well, and I think the appeal of the rollout of broadband, particularly as they've fashioned it, they're using resources from the rollout of broadband to ultimately pay, as more and more people are subscribing to broadband, it's feeding more and more revenue back into the system. And so I think to staff, part of the question would be there's sort of a finite, if we told you money was no object, we want everybody to have this service by March, I suspect you would say that is not doable. Jeff will say
we'll
anything.
get it done by February.
He'll give you a job, Joe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, because I would be out there saying, okay, how do we make this?
Right, but, so I think there is a part of this where we have to temper, we can throw all the money in the world at it, and it's not gonna change the calendar. I'm not saying that's where we are, but there's a sweet spot between doing nothing. You're gonna have everything done by 2028 on your current plan, regardless of money.
There are some areas that are underground that the costs are prohibitive, we've had to skip. But as you said, as we bring revenues in, being not-for-profit, we're able to invest those, come back and get those as well that weren't even part of the plan.
So you see, I understand that this is going to involve math that I don't feel inclined to do right now. But I think we need to we need to weigh those two outcomes, but a couple years difference, is the difference between a first grader who's reading on a third grade level and a third grader who's not, because we took 2 years longer.
I think some other math, though, that I think we all can do you're offering 200 megs at $49 a month. And so, plus you've also identified sources that some people with low income could get some relief even from that.
Yeah, in the EDI area, those that can qualify for those programs, it's $50 a month. So our 200 by 200 is covered by that entire price there. So it's a great opportunity for those. The other thing too is the reason we say this, we'll pull it back 2 years. We will still be, if you all choose to support this, we will still be really doubling up. Talk about the speed. We will be doing another phase at the same time we're doing this. So we will roll in and bring more construction to the area to get that done quicker. So.
Yeah, I don't mean to be undercutting your ask. I just want to be real, to your question, we have to weigh those things. You know, we're talking about a delta of 2 years. 2 years matters when you're 9 years old.
And with the remote worker program, that's like a wave. That thing's gonna peak and fade. That's not gonna be real attractive forever, and I think if you're really committed to that program, this program will help you capture the peak of that wave at the same time. There's several timing issues, I guess is our point, that need to be weighed and considered, as well as the financial implications.
And one other thing, if I might, when we talk about, of course, remote work or people working from home, one of the other things that has impacted tremendously with broadband is telehealth. And I know we just finished looking at our insurance for the coming year and everything, and if-
Mike, the mic.
Oh, great. I'm sorry. Usually I just talk and I hate standing in one place, but when we look at the impact is the telehealth side of it. And when you look at our insurance program, probably yours too, the deductible, if you go online and do telehealth, is tremendous savings to every company that can participate in that. But it's also a tremendous opportunity in some of those EDI areas and everyone else to be able to now go online and get telehealth and be able to talk to a doctor that you may not have gone to the doctor before because you felt like you couldn't afford it. Well, now you'd be able to actually access that and get a doctor on there and maybe improve the health of the community, not just the education side, but also the health and well-being of our community. So there's a lot of things that greatly come into play, and so we really appreciate the opportunity to be here and look forward to hearing back, and hope this is something we can all work together to move forward. I also need to thank Charlie Stahl tonight too, because if you saw my little sticker, Charlie gave this to me, but if there's anybody that
I'm surprised Charlie didn't want to keep that for himself.
Well, it says I love my job, and he figured I was probably, if there's anybody that loves their job, nobody loves it more than me. So I appreciate being here, and again, if there's any further questions, that you just let us know, and we'll be more than happy to answer those. But and Pete's nodding at me that you talked on him.
Take that hook, Stacy. Thank you, gentlemen. Your next order of business is consideration of a beer license application for A1 Smoke Shop located at 1615A West Market Street. This is for a Class 2 off-premise license. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors, and the recommendation would be for your approval.
The applicant will approach the podium. If you'll come on to the podium, and as you get there, if you'll give your name and the address of your business, please.
My name is Karan Patel, 1615 West Market Street.
All right. Mr. Patel, have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol in Johnson City?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree to abide by them?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Does the commission have questions for the applicant?
Move for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, if you'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Congratulations, sir.
Next is consideration of a beer license application for FP Johnson City LLC, doing business as the Courtyard of Johnson City, located at 4025 Hamilton Place. This is for a Class 1 on-premise license. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors. The recommendation is for your approval.
You'll give us your name and your business address.
My name is Stephen Bales, 4025 Hamilton Place, Johnson City.
And Mr. Bales, have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol in Johnson City?
Many times,
And do you agree to abide by them?
always.
All right, thank you. Do we have a
Move approval.
Second.
motion and a second? We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And if I may say, Pete, congratulations on your pending retirement and job well done.
Well, thank you, sir, and thanks for all you've done through the years. I mean, you have been a mainstay in the hotel business since I can remember.
32 years.
And your properties are always of the best maintenance and low calls for service. And you have been a rock steady guiding hand for the CVB through all those years. I really appreciate all you've done for our community in your 30 years
Really
here.
looking forward to the new ownership group. They're already looking to put quite a bit of money into the property. I think over the next 24 months, you're probably going to see about $6 million spent.
Oh, wow.
So we'll be back to the shiny new diamond we was 12 years ago when I was here the first time. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but
Right.
it has been. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, yeah, thanks.
Next order of business is consideration of the suspension of the beer license held by Poblanos Mexican Grill and Bar located at 2697 Boones Creek Road. Sonny, you want to come up, please, Chief Turner? Just as a background while they're on their way up, the state of Tennessee had run an operation at this location and notified the city that the establishment had served alcohol to an individual confirmed to be under the age of 21 on March 16th, 2019, August 22nd, 2019, June 16th, 2020, and March 3rd, 2021. That is a violation both of TCA and the City of Johnson City Ordinance, and to sell alcohol to a minor. Sonny, I'll turn it over to you from there, please, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. And prior to the meeting, Chief Turner and I had the opportunity to have a telephone call with the attorney that is representing Poblanos in this matter. There was an agreement that there is no contest to the dates of the suspension that have been proposed before you with the letter that has also been likewise served upon the representatives of Poblanos. Are there any questions regarding the suspension or the dates that are contained therein?
Are there questions from the commission? We're basically just mirroring the state's dates.
Yes, Mayor. There is an agreed order that's been entered between Poblanos and the state regarding the TABC license. The beer suspension by this beer board will run concurrent to those dates that have been agreed upon and negotiated between the parties.
Questions for Ms. Sandos? So are we just needing a motion to approve the action?
Yes, Mayor. There is whenever the state revokes a liquor license, there is a statutory process that the local beer boards must go through as well for the suspension of the beer license.
Move for approval. We have a motion to approve the suspension as outlined.
I do have one other question, if I
Okay, I'm
could.
sorry, please.
Will there be additional training, at Poblanos, as a result of this?
That'll be up to Poblanos to ensure that
And
occurs.
you're here, yeah. If you'd like to come up to the podium, please, if you'll give your name and business address.
Yes, my name is Eric Petch. Address is 2697 Boones Creek Road in Johnson City. Yeah, we are going to be doing some training. One of the things that I would like to kind of address that is my concern is the training that has developed from when I started to nowadays. Before, it was an 8-hour training that all servers would take. And I remember how they used to drill it that about selling to a minor. Well, from 8 hours, it dropped to 5 hours. From 5 hours, now it has dropped to 3 hours. And from those 3 hours is online. There's no one really telling people. I remember when I took the classes, they will even bring IDs and give to us and look at them and say, tell me which ones are fake and which ones are. They really trained us well when we had that 8 hour. To the point that the servers that have actually served, they did ask for IDs. It was just because it was maybe a month. They didn't look at the month. They looked at the year, which it was their fault. Now, the establishments are actually being punished for that, which I know that we signed an agreement saying that we are responsible. But also that puts a lot of toll on the revenue coming in, and also the Tennessee Department of Revenue that we pay every month, that they lose as well. Also, if we took in consideration of all the employees, they lose tips. That's the type of revenue they get from for their households. But my biggest concern is that they're not giving the proper training, I believe, to servers, that for them to be aware that it's something, that they could get a misdemeanor, because the last person they got, what's going to happen, and the only thing they will say, well, you're just going to get a ticket and that's it. Then we explained to her that, no, you're getting a misdemeanor, that everything that was going to happen, and she got afraid. She was never told that, even in classes. I remember taking the classes that they told us everything that would happen, and we were afraid. I remember me serving, I was afraid. But nowadays, I don't think the training is being done proper the way that it should be. It's just something just to consider. But we do agree with the suspension and everything that happened,
Thank you. I guess that answered your training
It
question. I think
does.
our goal is to see those rules followed in all cases and support you and staff in achieving that end, because that's ultimately the goal here. So we had a motion on the suspension, and did you make a second, Commissioner Brock? Are there any other questions of staff or the, Mr., is it Vetch?
Petch.
Petch, thank you, Mr. Petch.
I would just make one recommendation, is maybe to, what you've shared with us is, obviously concerning, and to share those concerns, assuming this training is done by the state of Tennessee, but to share your concerns as a restaurant owner.
Which
about
we have actually tried, but we are not listened to, so, in a way, so.
Mr. Peterson.
You're free to do all the additional training you would like to do. With what you've said here this evening, I feel like that you've probably got a good idea of the training level that you feel like your employees need. I would very strongly recommend that you take the time to properly train your employees in addition to what they're currently receiving, if you feel like the training isn't adequate. And if I stand to be corrected, but if I believe I'm right, there are multiple sources of that training available. And if you don't like the training you're getting now, I would suggest that you find another training organization that would provide the training that you feel would be adequate for your people to be properly trained.
Okay.
So there's some opportunities, and I would encourage you to take advantage of other opportunities so that you feel more comfortable with the training level.
Okay. Yeah, the training that we get, the state gives it to us. They give us the list, and they're only people that are kind of licensed with them are the only people that are able to give us the class. But that part about me doing the training, yeah, I would definitely consider that.
Yes.
That little bit where you said, I was afraid, I was very afraid. I think if your staff heard that, that would make an
I
impression.
was when I did, because the way they trained us, they really put a little bit of fear on you, and so.
Well, thank you. Any further questions? We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jennings, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
And Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
All right. I promised at our last meeting that I would begin to my right, Commissioner Murphy, do you have any items you wish to pull?
Yes, sir. I would like to pull item number 6.1.5.
Anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
6.1.1 and 6.1.3.
Commissioner Brock?
6.1.8 and 6.4.1.
6.4.1, okay. Commissioner Hunter?
All of mine got picked.
Because you went last.
So going in order, the first item is the landmark sign. So,
Just looking at the sign, I want to make sure that Watauga Insurance is spelled Watauga instead of Watauga.
Oh, I will double check that, thank you.
Yes, because I was looking through to see who all did, and I said, I bet they would appreciate not
no, I
having
think
that.
they go by Watauga.
Well, and I could go by Watauga Orthopedics,
You
but we
could.
go by Watauga.
We will
because
double
it's
check
spelled
that.
like the area is. So anyway, that's the only thing I was going to
Perfect,
mention
thank
about
you.
it. So make sure they don't spell that wrong.
We had an incredible design, and after about 4 weeks of working with Bradley Machinery, we realized that it wasn't going to be able to be done the way that we had, the one that I had seen in San Antonio. But I believe this one's going to turn out look really nice, and it's going to match the sesquicentennial donor plaques as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is that all you had on that?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is the approval of a Tdot license agreement. This is the Overpass Mural project, so I'm assuming, is that a Mr. Best or Mr. Penzola?
What's the questions, and we'll,
I may need to talk to Chief of Police also, just because with distracted driving, my question is, having murals there on either side, is that going to be distractions to drivers driving underneath that overpass? We got enough distracted drivers already.
doesn't take much to distract them anymore, does it?
No, it doesn't. And 6 murals underneath the overpass lighted to look at while you're driving by, is that going to be a problem?
In the state's review, they do look at that. So they had copies of what we were showing. So there is restrictions as far as how much time they believe it could distract a driver. And they're still in agreement, it's okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was taken into consideration because I drive there a lot and I want to make sure that underpass, overpass.
Well, maybe they won't look at their phone.
I was gonna say,
and
maybe
they'll
the
look at
murals will get
At
them
least they'll be
to put
looking
their
at the
phone
way.
down.
Up a little bit instead
Yeah.
of down at their phone while they're driving.
Is that all you had on that one?
That was it.
Okay, the next item pulled is the change order on Preston Construction for the Indian Trail project, 6.1.5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello again.
Hello.
And the question is?
Yeah, I see that there is about a $50,000 savings.
Yes.
I like to hear that. Let's talk about that. That's good
Absolutely.
news. A lot of times people want money, but you're giving it back.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to,
In your next meeting, you'll have the same thing on there from another one of these projects. So what we do is we allow so many allowances. We have contingency money in all these projects. And so if we manage the project correctly, we don't hit a lot of really big unforeseen expenses or unforeseen items, then we're able to adjust that through a reconciliation change order at the end of the project and realize that savings back to the taxpayers and to the city commission. And so Indian Trail was completed without a lot of major unforeseen items. So when we balanced out all the allowances and the contingencies that was left in there, it was nearly a $50,000 savings under what was the budget approved.
it's good.
And next commission meeting, we'll have one on there for Southside Elementary School. So we really try to manage and watch these projects very closely and use the money that's been budgeted and allocated to us wisely.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one, Mr. Peterson, 6.1.8 is the extra work authorization, this Winged Deer Park.
Yes. This is the scope of the project got changed when we decided to expand the size of the fenced area to put the soccer fields in on the turf, the artificial surface of the softball fields. And in review of schematic design, Mr. Ellis also noted that there was not a place to accommodate the umpires. So we have expanded the maintenance building a little bit and created a shower and a little office, if for lack of a better term, in there for the umpires. There's also the addition of 3 natural grass soccer fields in there adjacent to the softball fields. So at some point in time down the road, if you wanted to go back and put a different surface on those, you could. This creates them and creates them as grass fields at the current time. And this also covers the expense of changing the fields from a natural grass field to the synthetic surface. These are the design fees. These monies were a part of the original budget. They were listed as contingency funds. So this will not alter the overall city budget of the cost of the project. We're just designating the utilization of part of what has previously been labeled as contingency money.
Commissioner Brock, you had pulled that. Did that address the questions, or did you have something further?
It did. It brought attention to what that is all about. I guess one of the other follow-up questions is still about the soccer fields on the softball fields. Have y'all talked to other complexes that have done that, and how does that really work out? I mean, I still have concern about scheduling with as popular as softball is. I mean, are we really going to be able to get the kind of use out of those soccer fields that we truly need to meet the need here?
I guess my other question on that was, we were going to expand the fences so you could put soccer fields on the softball fields, but it also says 3 additional grass fields, so
You end up with 7.
7 soccer fields with that.
Right.
And 4 of them are AstroTurf and 3 are natural grass.
That is correct, sir.
But again, with all of the scheduling of softball, we've had a hard time getting our softball people even out on the fields. That's why we're expanding this. If we expand and have all the softball, are we ever going to get to use the soccer fields?
I think you will have plenty of opportunity to do that, especially in the rec season. The adult softball, which is primarily what you're dealing with Monday through Friday, are all after work and run late into the evening. And you got to remember, now you've got 9 softball fields at that location, and you would have 10 soccer fields at Winged Deer now, in addition to the 5 soccer fields at Civitan, and 1 for sure, and potentially 3 more soccer fields at Liberty Bell. So I think you've got more than adequate fields to cover the soccer load and the softball load. An example of what this looks like is over on Seminole. The university built some intramural fields over on Seminole. What that looks like is sitting right over there on Seminole Drive, if you want to drive by and look at what it looks like with the fences adjusted to accommodate soccer. Yes.
Where would the 3 other fields that are referred to here, where would they go?
They will lie between the driveway, the road that's going to go up, or what's now, for easy point of reference, between the driveway that goes up to the church and the softball fields that will be over on the 37 acres.
Below the church?
No,
Beside it.
not on the church at all. These are over on our 37 acres.
Okay, on that
Okay.
property.
Let me, okay. Charlie's got a slide for that.
This may be an easier description. There's your fourplex.
And the roads to your right.
Roads over here.
Okay.
Yes.
Churches across here in this area.
So Bristol Highway is at the bottom.
At the bottom, correct.
Yes.
Those will be natural grass.
Yes.
And then 4 or 3?
Or soft. Better.
3 or 4 on the softball fields?
Three soccer
I was thinking that was 4, Charlie.
He's got 3 drawn out here. I think we've had a discussion about an additional one.
Yeah, I mean, the discussion was to have a soccer field on each one of those softball fields. Yes.
So right now, the consent agenda item is just
Yeah.
the design, correct?
Correct.
So are there further questions on that item? All right. The next item is 6.4.1, McGill and Associates. This is the master plan for Kickoff. Commissioner Brock pulled it, so I'll let you.
I read through it. A lot of it was about them. So exactly what will they be doing, with this project?
Okay, well, first of all, as you know, this was presented in the CIP for a number of years. When you all purchased the Kickoff farm property, which was 12 years ago, for an additional park. I think you read it in the paper. The same statements were made to you as made in the paper recently. The city is now population 71,000 and growing. Demand for additional space throughout the whole community, programming. This particular property, as you remember, was converted from Optimus Park and is to be used for outdoor recreation. Okay, in that endeavor, we requested that a master plan be funded to get public input from the citizens of the community across the street, around, but also our citizens of Johnson City, Park and Recreation Board, and the City Commission. Pete and I were involved in the Kiwanis Park master plans many years ago in sort of a similar process, where a firm was retained and they had a series of public meetings, got commission input, what they wanted to see, Park and Rec Board input, and they presented some concept plans that went through the Park and Recreation Board, ultimately went up to the City Commission. The Commission said, hey, this looks best for us. And what went on from there was a cost estimate was developed and the opportunity to fund the design and development of the project, which in the case of Kiwanis never did take place, but it would be certainly recommended that the product of the master plan be a first step in moving forward to the full development of this park, which would take, obviously, funding over a period of time.
Once approved, how long it's going to take for them?
This particular process, if you approve this particular firm, McGill and Associates, is recommended 5 months as an estimate, which is good because they can get back in time. If there's opportunities to consider in the budget process, you certainly can have that opportunity.
Good. Thank you.
Charlie, there's some fields already at Wing Deer that are used for soccer, or is that improving those, or that would be in
Those are 3
addition?
new ones.
Yeah, these are
Okay.
additional ones. Yes, sir.
Old ones need rehab too. Is that a part of this plan to rehab the old
Actually,
ones?
if you haven't been out there, go look
I
at them.
haven't. Okay. Can do.
You will find them as pleasing as you commented on the golf fairways today.
I will put my soccer shoes on and go out there.
James and I talked about having him come in and make a presentation on some stuff, so not to steal all of his thunder, but that is a magnificent demonstration of what happens to natural turf when you close them for a year and give them a chance to heal. Neyland Stadium only gets played on about 9 times a year, and that's the reason it always looks like a carpet. Grass needs time to heal, and they've put a lot of time and effort and sand and grass seed and fertilizer to those things, and they really look good. They do.
Thanks.
So
Did that get everything you had on that one? All right. So that's all
Thank
that
you.
was originally pulled from the consent agenda. Are there any other items, or do we have a motion for action?
Move for approval?
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
next order of business is consideration of ordinance 4790-21, An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from R3 medium-density residential zoning to RP3 planned residential zoning. Certain property along South Austin Springs Road at Cobb Creek is ready for your consideration on second reading after public hearing.
Good evening. We spoke about this at the last meeting, but just because there is public and just to go over it again, very high level. Here you have is where the site is located and the portions that are being rezoned. The property is all of this, but the only part that is being asked for rezoning is the shaded area. Their plan is to build 77 single-family homes. And what that would look like is something like this, and it kind of fits better on the slide this way, but it would be turned a little bit. They are proposing right-of-ways of 24, or pavement of 24 feet, right-of-ways of 50 feet, and 26 feet where there are hydrants. They are meeting their open space requirement, and then they are also adding some things that came up at the Planning Commission meeting, is that they are adding some buffers adjoining a couple of homes that are existing. One is this home, it would be right here, kind of in the background over here. So they're adding a type 1 buffer and some Leland cypresses around that, as well as a buffer around this house right here. The neighborhood meeting was held, and there was some concern about stormwater issues and flooding. The staff has recommended approval. Planning Commission recommended approval with the notes being added, and their plan does have these notes included. So I'm here for questions, and the developer is also here.
Further questions? We also need to have a public hearing, so if there are questions for staff or the developer, now would be a good time, or if not, we'll open the public hearing, and this is on ordinance 479021, the South Austin Springs Road rezoning. Anyone wishing to speak for or against? We'll close public hearing.
Move for approval.
Have a motion to approve in a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance 4791-21. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from I-2 heavy industrial zoning and B3 supporting central business zoning to MX1 mixed-use neighborhood zoning at 312 and 316 South Commerce Street is ready for your consideration on second reading after public hearing.
This request is brought to you by the applicant. It was part of a larger MX1 that we talked about over the summer. What they would like to do is rezone everything in this, well, they end up having to rezone a lot more, but the development is in the green area. In order with city policy, there's a lot of right-of-way that would also encompass the rezoning. They would like to build a 2,000 square foot establishment that contains 300 square feet of a coffee shop and 1,700 square feet of a bakery. And that comes into play with parking, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But as part of the MX, one of the things is that you need to connect into sidewalks, which they are doing, 2 places to a public street, 1 place to the parking lot that is adjacent. They will, as far as parking, there are 7 spots that are on site. However, there is some, I wouldn't say gray, but some area where we don't actually classify a bakery for certain parking, which means it's up to staff to kind of look around at what area parking or what other parking regulations might do. And with this one, we found that somewhere between 4 to 7 spaces for a bakery would be appropriate. So with any approval, you would need to consider allocation per our ordinance of at least 2 spaces within the public parking lot. This is just the only picture I'm going to show. It's also part of the MX is kind of to ask about their architecture. This is what they're kind of thinking about. I wouldn't hold them to it, but this is what they're thinking about. A neighborhood meeting was held. There is neighborhood concern that was brought up both at the neighborhood meeting and at the planning commission meeting. Both planning staff and planning commission recommend approval.
Other questions for staff? If not, we'll open the public hearing on 4791-21.
Lorraine Brown, 319 Lamont Street. Thank you for listening to my opinions regarding rezoning. At the September Planning Commission meeting, when Mr. Mitchell said that our neighborhood has, quote, absolutely serious concerns that we as a city both understand and empathize with, unquote, he spoke of the other department heads that he would reach out to address our concerns. I was hopeful that finally there was some understanding, but once again, it turns out to be an empty promise. There has been no decrease in the number or speed of city vehicles. Public Works continues to illegally use neighborhood streets as cut-throughs. I do appreciate that after I called Summers Taylor dispatcher, they have stopped, but there needs to be city involvement in changing traffic patterns. There needs to be studied action before you make the problem worse by expanding the downtown into the surrounding neighborhoods. I say studied action because the most frequent problem presented by our residents has been traffic and parking. What the city did without study or consult is to make parking on one side of the street only on Wilson and Highland. In one day of posting signs, they have made both parking more difficult and traffic faster and heavier. Our homes were built at a time when not everyone had or needed a car, and so many do not have driveways or have shared driveways. When you commissioners asked about our neighborhood being on a grid system, you assured yourselves that the traffic is dispersed, and so more traffic will not be that bad. But the city has broken our grid. Which of our neighborhood streets do you drive down? Not the ones that due to city lack of planning are now dead ends. Hillcrest and Winter bear the brunt of traffic north-south, and Lamont and Highland east-west. One of the shortfalls of mixed use is that there are no limitation on the hours of operation. It is presented as a 300 square foot coffee shop and 1,700 square foot bakery, but once it is approved, it can become almost anything that makes a profit. You want to believe that one small coffee shop at the outskirts of the downtown cannot hurt the downtown. But I believe that anything that keeps people from possibly walking downtown and looking around hurts the downtown. From Founders Park, you can see several refreshment options a short walk away. Unfortunately, what you also see are many empty buildings. Before you expand commercially into the surrounding residential neighborhoods, you need to address the downtown's problems of vacant buildings, the homeless, and violent crime. You need a more comprehensive approach than chasing the homeless out of the downtown. You are spreading the problems of downtown into the surrounding neighborhood, making it a less desirable place to live. So why the hurry to put a second mixed-use parcel at Founders Park? Can we not wait 6 months or a year for another coffee shop until the city addresses the current problems that they have created in our neighborhood before making things worse? I do believe that in the future, mixed use in that area will make sense. When we moved here, I had thought that our neighborhood would be more like Dilworth in Charlotte by now, before now. But the city has consistently made things worse by placing developers before residents. You say that no promises were made when 2 vacant city lots near Founders were sold to Friends of the City. Mr. Pinzola said that he did not know how 2 Friends of the City knew of the mixed-use zoning a year before the public, and that buying the lot was a risk the buyer made. The planning department has tried to scare us with what could go into I-2 lots without sharing that due to the setback requirements of I-2, there is very little that can be done with the lots industrially. I hope that you will restore our faith in you, in our city, by postponing the rezoning or rezone to R4 until after our concerns are addressed.
Thank you.
I also have shorter, but Dr. Clayton wasn't able to make it. He was called out of town. He has a short thing, if you would allow me to read his.
Certainly.
Thank you. To the Johnson City Commissioners and to the citizens of Johnson City, I am Buddy Clayton, 422 Lee Street of Johnson City, Tennessee. I would just like to briefly comment on development without proper planning. I owned 3 parcels in the Mountain Home neighborhood in the University Edge development area, which was developed a few years ago. I went to many city commissioner meetings about this development concerning traffic and the change in the neighborhood and crime. First, the traffic has worsened 100-fold. Traffic is so bad that a car passes by my house every 10 to 15 seconds for hours at a time. It makes walking to the mailbox like being in a war zone. Many trash cans which were set out for pickup by the city were hit and demolished. The noise from loud mufflers has set off our alarm system repeatedly. We were assured that even though there were not enough parking spaces in the University Edge, that a bicycle rack would accommodate the extra people and visitors. This has proved false. Not only is the overflow gravel lot by the ballpark used, but vehicles park alongside the buildings, which may be a fire code violation. The overflow and visitors on weekend nights to the wee hours of the morning with unruly students getting out of their cars and knocking down our mailbox, as well as throwing trash in the street, is intolerable. Speeding is also an issue, with a speed bump being placed on our street after the University Edge apartment development was built. Prior to the speed bump being built, cars were going 50 to 70 miles per hour. Now they don't go that fast, but amazingly they use it as a jump ramp. As for the neighborhood, the people that I knew and depended upon and grew up with are all gone. There is no sense of neighborhood, as most of the established people have left the neighborhood or changed their homes into rentals as our concerns were ignored and the problems we feared came to pass. There is now a major drug influence in the neighborhood, with a major drug bust just 2 houses from me. Our neighborhood requested a traffic study prior to this development. We requested the complex be rental apartments rather than student housing rented out by the room. We requested that it include a minimum of parking spaces to accommodate the tenants. All of these requests were ignored, and the consequences are worse than we had feared. A traffic study prior to any more assaults on our neighborhood is warranted to address the problems you have created with the decisions you have made and failed to make that affect Mountain Home neighborhood. Any further commercial development in our neighborhood warrants a comprehensive study that considers the needs of the established residential neighborhood. Citizens should not be Citizens should be considered prior to profit. Truly, the city must really consider these things. And that was Buddy Clayton's words. Any questions for me?
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Public hearing remains open on 4791-21. If you'll give your name and Address.
Hi, I'm Michael Manzi. I'm at 609 Franklin Square Court in Johnson City. I'm the one who wants to develop this property. First, I'd like to address how the city did not give me any inside information. I actually bought one of the parcels from an individual. So the city did not own both parcels. I just have investment in downtown. I'd like to do beautiful things downtown. I saw where the land was, and the reason I bought it is I saw the potential that the community needs, in my opinion, there's a lot of activity that goes on in that park. There's a lot of special events that go on in that park, and there's no place like a Christmas time when you have the trees out there, which I think is beautiful this year, to get a cup of hot chocolate or to get a hot cup of coffee. I just think it's a great location. It'll allow the community to get to come down and have coffee and some baked goods, as well as service the people in the park. And we're going to have a beautiful rooftop bar, as you saw, a rooftop seating area. And as you saw what I do with the bar downtown that I'm building, I do everything first class. I have Raphael, who's going to also part of the label organization, Stir Fry Group, who's doing the bakery and the coffee shop, and we do nothing but first class. And I think that the city would benefit from this. I think the community, from my feedback that I get, would want this. And all I can ask is that you approve this. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Mr. Manzi? For the record, I don't believe we've ever met.
No.
As a friend of the city, the mayor says, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manzi. Are there others wishing to speak for or against? We'll close public hearing and turn to the commission for deliberation or questions for staff, if there are any.
Do you know off the top of your head how long MX1 has been in existence?
Yes, that would have, MX1, I know in the last revision to MX1, which was a pretty significant revision, and that would have been January?
The revision.
The revision, because it came right before Brian Winston's local motion expansion.
MX1's been in existence since the 90s.
I would just like to make one comment that when these proposals, I think there were almost 20 properties in the beginning as kind of a bundle to rezone to MX1. We did listen, and in fact, we were very careful about looking at these and unbundle them then so that they can be reviewed one-on-one, just with, taking a lot of factors into consideration. So I think Mr. Manzi's project at the end of Founders Park will create kind of that gathering space, that gathering place for the Mountain Home neighborhood that can walk down, that perhaps that can help reunite the neighborhood that we're talking about. So with that, I'm going to make a motion for approval on second reading.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion, Commissioner Murphy, or you?
Yes, sir. To just share my experience on Mr. Manzi's involvements in downtown. I believe that things that he's been involved in has brought a lot of value to our city. And businesses that he's been a part of, they represent a sense of excellence and safety. I feel safe in your establishments, and I trust that you would bring that same atmosphere to this potential property here. So I think it will do good service to our community. However, I do hear the comments from residents, or particular residents on today, and but where that's located, I do believe that I do believe it wouldn't cause much interruption to the neighborhood as seen and depicted here. I've traveled that area, and to know that the potential bakery is on the corner right there by the parking lot, I believe that I think it'll work.
Mayor, can I ask Mr. Mancy one more question?
Sure, I'm sure he's willing to get back up.
Do you have hours of operation that you are planning on having this open?
Right now, we're talking about probably 8 to 9. That's
Okay.
all it is.
Not a late night place
No,
to
it's
go.
not. Even if you look at the restaurants downstairs that Raphael does, like the Label, they pretty much close at 11 on Friday nights and earlier than that. So this is, we're talking about bread and nothing beyond 9 o'clock probably at all.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I think before we call the roll, I would also point out that what we're being asked to rezone is property that's currently zoned industrial or supporting central business. And so these are parcels that have, since the beginning of zoning, not been residential adjacent to a residential area. And I think the challenge that we're facing now is how to reconcile land use plans and intentions of a different era when state of Franklin was railroad tracks and not a major, artery through town. How do we get this property to be at its highest and most suitable use? And so with that, I'm supportive of it. Now, what I also heard is an awful lot of concerns that I think warrant further discussion. And please hear me not making any promises, because I would not want anything that I'm saying to be the basis of a claim of some promise. But when you're talking about speed bumps or people hitting trash cans or people illegally cutting through, is that actually illegal, Mr. Peterson?
It is not.
Okay,
People
so.
cut through my neighborhood.
Well, they
your
cut through my neighborhood all the time.
Public street's a public street.
Okay,
and you
so
can't
that's,
limit
so the use of the word illegal doesn't actually apply, but I think certainly people want to be good neighbors, and if there's not a purpose for vehicles going through and speed and those sorts of things, those are things that need to be dealt with. I don't know that those have a whole lot to do with the zoning applied to a particular parcel. And so with that, I think this particular project has the potential of being a nice transition between the park and a public space and the residential neighborhood behind it. If there's not objection, Ms. Jennings, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance 4793-21. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from R2 low-density residential zoning to PB planned business zoning. Property located at 2311 Knob Creek Road is ready for your consideration on second reading after public hearing.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Peyton. I believe that at the last meeting, Ms. Hodges gave you guys this presentation, but seeing as it's public hearing, I'm going to go back over it really quick. So essentially, this is a lot. It's 2311 Knob Creek, and they are requesting to go from low-density residential to planned business district. Now, the intention is to use the existing single-family house for adaptive reuse as office space. So as you can see here on their concept plan, they are using the existing egress and ingress, and they're going to use the existing trees as the necessary required buffers. Now, just a reminder to you guys, if anything were to come through and say they wanted to redevelop or add development to this site, it would have to come back through you as a concept plan amendment. There was a neighborhood meeting held on September 8th. No one was in attendance, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval.
Are there questions? There are no questions. I believe there is public hearing, so I will open the public hearing on 4793-21. This is the Knob Creek Road petition.
Hello, I'm Jerry Petzel. Address is Kingsport, Tennessee, and I'm a real estate broker, and this property was owned by William Muse for many years, since the late 60s. He built his business on the site. He was in the building sprinkler system business, and some years ago he sold that business subdivided the property in order to sell it, had that rezoned. His health situation today is the reason he's selling the property. And we believe the highest misuse of the property is for office space of some sort, and that's the purpose of the rezoning, and we ask that you approve it.
Thank you. Any other public comments for or against the application? If not, we'll close the public hearing and turn to the commission for action.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a
Second.
motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is to hear a presentation and consider approval of the Innovation Park Master Campus Plan. As you're aware, the Public Building Authority has been charged with the oversight of the development of this, and I will turn this over to Mr. Carr and Company and Chase to give us an overview of the master plan as it is currently proposed. And I would stress to you, this is a master plan. This is a concept at this point, subject to change as we get into details of construction drawings and
Go ahead and hand those out real quick.
design, engineering, those types of things. Hank?
Thank you, sir. Hank Carr, 3326 Bondwood Circle. We're going to hand out this deck, just if you want to take some notes or anything, if you had any questions, but it's not that important. So 24 years ago, we sat here and did this master plan for MedTech Park. That's how long it's been. A few years later, you did Millennium Center, and so you're kind of completing the bookend, so to speak, of Innovation Park. I will kind of kick us off today with just an orientation for you really fast, just so everybody knows. We're talking about the old Armory property, and I want to really just cover three things tonight. We're not going to solve all the problems tonight. In fact, problems are being solved daily, and I'm going to let Phil come up here in a minute, and he's got some things he's going to want to talk about for sure. But the area in the yellow dotted lines, we're going to talk about land use, we're going to talk about traffic circulation and pedestrian access. Those are the kind of three things we want to begin to address right now. What we are trying to do, what you've engaged the PBA to do, and they've engaged SNME and Realty Trust Group, is to think through the problems, work with the city staff and the neighborhood and all the university, and begin to pull all this together. And there's a lot to pull together. What's really interesting about it is if you look back, in 2003, this master plan was done originally by McCarty, Holtzapfel, McCarty. That's what's on the left, and I'll grab a pointer here. But and you might go, well, heck, why didn't we just use the master plan from back then? And the answer really is that was, I don't know if you can bear, I don't think you can see it because I'm at an angle, but yeah, I'll use the cursor. So this plan was on the entire 60 acres. The road bisected the spine of the entire property, and it was pretty well thought out at the time. What has happened, though, as you fast forward over those, almost 19, 18 years, if you look over on the right-hand side, the university has kind of moved forward with some pieces and parts on their side. They developed what I call the downtown clinic. I think it's their pharmacy and their homeless clinic, and of course they have their cardiology building down in here. And then they've master planned the rest of it to try to maximize it. And so it's not that they didn't follow the plan from 18 years ago. They did what they thought was right for them. And so what we needed to do was begin to go back and look at that and figure out how to make this plan begin to match and correlate under those three areas of land use, pedestrian access, and traffic circulation. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish. And there's a lot that has to go on here. The plan that we've settled on, and this, a lot of people have looked at this, is this plan here. Now, and I want to tell you, it will probably not look like this when we're finished. In fact, I know it won't. But this gives us a really good guideline to begin to move it forward, and it gives us some understanding of the lot sizes and how we might stage the lot sales, and how the road network needs to get designed, because what happens after this is we'll move into a schematic design phase to complete phase one of this work. And that's where the engineers start to really get involved and do, I don't know, Clive, what, 50% of the design work and the schematic? Is it, I don't know what the percentage-wise is. It doesn't get all designed in this phase, but a good chunk of it is going to get laid out. And so we're trying to get to that point so we can bring back to you a price. So we got to understand what this project's going to really cost. So then we got to go find the money. And then we get into phase two, which is go build it. So today we're in the planning and the discovery phase. We've laid this out. For me, the one thing I've learned in these 24 years since the beginning of the MedTech days was flexibility. You have got to lay out a park like this so that you can't make one decision that begins to hamstring everything else downstream. And so we started thinking about how to do this, and you know, we were challenged. We had design charrettes with the PBA, the city participated, the PBA participated, the university participated, and hard questions. Hey, does the road go over on the left-hand side? Does it go down the middle, on the right? And just the truth is, it's pretty much got to, I think it's got to go where it's sitting to maximize the land use. You don't want to carve the land up in a bunch of parcels that, you know, what you could do, you know, in theory, we've set this up to have really 6 different buildings. But there could be as many as, there could be 12 buildings on it. There's 6 lots. There could be 12 buildings. If you go back and you see the primary difference in the original master plan, it had a lot of small buildings on it versus some larger ones. And look, you know, 20 years ago, construction prices were a lot less than they are today. And so I just don't believe that small buildings are financially viable except in certain circumstances, and we can still do that. It does not change anything. But what this plan does is it begins to give us the flexibility to sell Lot 1, for instance, as a corporate. Probably this is where you're going to make a little bit of money for somebody. They're going to put their name on it and hang it out on the street. We think this is my analogy, it's Bank of Tennessee sitting at the front door of MedTech Park. That's what I would envision there, something that's pretty powerful and big. These other ones start to really become more economic development oriented. You know, they're going to contribute to the university's efforts, educational efforts, medical efforts, technology efforts, incubator efforts. And so as we worked our way down through here, we started looking at, well, you know, conceptually, I grew up here in the school of Jim Moody, and so I like the idea of these buildings being a little bit closer to the street. And you know, it looks like there's a lot of parking here, but one of the things I've really pushed on is we really need to plan for 5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. That seems like a lot. Code doesn't require that, but we're putting more and more people in buildings today, and so we need to plan for the worst case. If we can put more buildings on it, and today we've got between 140 and roughly 180,000 square feet of potential here on what is really 20 acres of usable land. Because you've got about 4.2 acres of stormwater land that you're going to you have no choice. This is a big, important piece to the puzzle. And you have a cemetery down here as well that you can't do anything with. And then you've got some land right in here that is not big enough to build on, and we have some thoughts about that later on. And then you've got the roadbed. So 10 acres get sunk in all those things. So we set it up to be flexible. And if we had to, we could break any of these into 2 buildings and, you know, put a building here and a building here. But this gives us a pretty good idea how we're going to move forward. And again, it probably won't look like this exactly when we're done. MedTech Park certainly doesn't, but it's pretty close. It's pretty interesting to look back at it. There is one thing that I want to have a healthy discussion with you about. During the design charrette, we asked, you know, what are the things that people wanted to see? And I'm going to be the first to tell you, I did not see this coming, but there was a strong desire to have some multifamily in this site. Now, the conversation carried a lot of different ideas, but what we're talking about here is if it's multifamily, it would be corporate housing, not garden-style apartments. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with garden-style apartments. This would be 2-3 stories high, maybe more. It would have probably parking underneath it or certainly possibly around it, but there's a demand for that. There's a demand at the healthcare system, at the educational system, and we've had numerous inquiries about it. But I'm reluctant to move that forward without at least telling you what we're thinking.
You're talking about like extended stay
No.
motels, or are you
No,
talking
I'm
about
talking
furnished
about
apartments?
true apartment condominium style units that, by example, university could buy a block, hospital could buy a block and use them for rotating interns in and out of the community. It's a need.
So they would be presumably furnished, though? I mean, they'd
Yeah,
be like
I
ready
think
to
they'd be
move
furnished,
into
yeah.
with luggage.
Now, a lot of work to do here, okay? Let me tell you where the real obstacle is. This is all zoned RTP, doesn't allow for it yet, okay? Well, I said yet. It's got to get worked through, all right? I am not asking you to rezone it. I just want you to know that that's what's on the community, the PBA's mind, and others. And no one has yet to tell me that's a horrible idea. I got people calling. I'm just not going to go out here and chase this down until you say, okay, I'm open-minded to it, because you still got to deal with the zoning, and there's a lot of other things that have to get dealt with. But we do think there's merit to that conversation. We've actually looked at it in it depends on the demand, but a smaller complex or a much larger one down here with underground parking. But look, there's some obstacles here. You got 2 railroad tracks that are within a stone's throw of this, all right? And you got at-grade crossings. I think there's 3 at-grade crossings within, 1,000 feet of this, which means they blow the horn for, I don't know how many seconds, but a lot. This is not ideal, but that's not for me to decide. There's some work that's going to have to get done. But I do want you to know that conceptually, Lot 6, we're thinking about corporate housing, multifamily. We don't know if it works, but we think it's worth looking into. We do think it is. And so, these are the square footages of each building. They could be cut in half. They could be built in 2 stories in a smaller footprint. Again, just gives me a place to start to move forward. So
Just to comment on your
Yes, ma'am.
residential presentation there. A lot of these new small developments like this, I've seen some in some other larger cities, they'll put the residential on the second floor of all the buildings then.
It is a
And
possibility.
if you have enough amenities that, you have the coffee shops we just talked about, and they're with walking distance over to some other things, so that may be another thing that would free up a building to make commercial as well.
We have got a lot of work to do with the planning department for sure to figure out how this works. I'm going to kind of move forward, and then we can back up and grab any questions, and I'll get to the end here pretty quick. So land use is our #1 priority, figuring out how to subdivide the land and use it. And we broke these down into smaller slides to help you understand a little bit more, but I'm not going to speak on these unless you want to specifically. There's the residential piece on slide number 7. But I wanted to talk a little bit about pedestrian walkways, and we think this is a really important piece to the puzzle. When the university master planned their property, they specifically said we need to talk about how this connects to the Med Center and the VA. And they challenged us on the idea of a crossing at State of Franklin and, is it Century Drive, Phil? Is that what it's called? I think that's right, Century Drive, right there next to Woodridge. And so when we were working with them, we investigated the idea of a pedestrian bridge. Now, there have been other ideas about a crossing down here at this signal at Med Center Professional Park Drive that would go underneath the road. It's an idea, and a lot of people believe that's a great solution. There's also a conversation going on right now, could we go underneath State of Franklin And so I don't want to present to you tonight that a pedestrian bridge is the solution, but I want you to know that we believe that whatever we do on this site, we need to think through how it connects to the Med Center and the VA. This is your biggest employer. This is where a vast majority of our, some of our best jobs in our community are, and there's a real opportunity here. So there is this green marks the existing walking trail, and it does actually go along the backside of the property. And you'll see here what we've done is tied in underneath the new bridge that's being planned at West Market. And Phil can speak to that far better than I can, to keep people off the road, off of West Market Street. So and then this all ties back up to State of Franklin, going across here on Century Drive, across either a pedestrian bridge or possibly a tunnel, over to the JCMC campus in the VA. And then down here, it is already connected over on the VA campus. And so we think what really starts to happen here is when you start to finish out this piece to the puzzle, you start to tie it all together. You start to have, and the traffic connections are what really make it work. The dotted lines really represent what exists today. I'll start a little bit backwards. Gold Star Boulevard up here on the right corner of the VA. So it will now connect all the way over to your Innovation Parkland. Down here at the bottom, this is what we all know as the green roof buildings right there across from this Cancer Center. This will all connect back in to the Innovation Parkland. Now, there's some challenges here. You got to cross state property, and you got to go by the right of way and figure that out. And that's our job to figure it out. But the university is already cooperating with the schematic design of this, and that's a great news. So university participates in the PBA. They have a designated representative, and they have put money into this to facilitate the schematic design of these two crossings, one here and another one right down here. And that's great news. So it's just a piece of the puzzle, and the concept is, of course, a boulevard that comes down, and one of the things that was required is really want to discourage people from, we don't want McKinley Road to be the destination here. We want State of Franklin to be the destination. Those are some changes that the Public Works has had, and so those are being worked through. Some stacking up here is being worked through, and there's still some concerns about this area, and I'll let Phil touch on these. But generally speaking, I think we've got a good plan here, and what we're asking you tonight is to tell us if you got any problems with it first off, and then we want to keep moving forward. This plan is, it's got a few tweaks that'll get made, and it'll get changed over time. If there's substantial changes, it got to come back to you is what'll have to happen. And so we recommend moving forward. We think we've got the right kind of mixes of uses in here. We've solved the pedestrian access issues, I believe, pretty well, and vehicle circulation. I'd like to turn it over to Phil. He may have questions or be able to answer anything. Phil, anything tonight?
For the audience at home, Phil is declining to come up unless we have questions. So key part there. So do commissioners have questions for Mr. Penzola?
I just have a question following up on Hank mentioning their bridge on Market Street. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, the master plan, what the plan reflects are two things that are critical in the development of a community: connectivity, okay, integration. You got to do those things to make a full community. We commented a lot, and still commenting a lot, on this particular design. But one of the things that we did discuss was pedestrian movements. And so we certainly wanted that incorporated into the master plan, because both the hospital and ETSU, I think everybody's in agreement we'd like to do it. Now, whether or not we can afford to do it, it's a whole different question. The second one that you asked specifically is, we talked to Tdot, they were going to replace the bridge on Market Street, and they agreed with us to put pedestrian underpass, so we don't have so many at-grade connections.
The bridge at
And that
Market
is
Street
great.
being between, what is that, Walnut Street
It's on the
and?
Jonesboro side of this plan, be right here.
Okay.
That's,
Yeah. And BrightRidge substations up here
yes,
across
and
the
so we
street
make
from it.
connections, because we have the trail on up.
Right.
All the way to Green Line. So that's what we talked about. And then there were other things we were talking about. Stormwater, I wanted to look at ways to improve conditions downstream through this project. I think it's doable, but in my conversations with Pete, it's not necessary as part of the master plan, but we certainly are going to address it during design. We had issues with some of the intersections, and Hank talked about it. I think that definitely will come to an agreement. We had one further discussion that Hank wasn't in about one of the connection points, and we'll work through that. So we're pleased with it. We do love the look. It's a great way to approach it. And as Pete discussed with me, that in Hank, these things can turn into anything, as you've seen it on Walnut Street. It's just going to be a sign of the time.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Carr? Guess your question to us was
Yeah,
just for some
we'd like
reactions.
your nod tonight on this concept plan, and we know if we make major changes to it, we got to bring it back to you. But we want to keep moving, and this just helps us do that. And the city's still running the show in terms of the road work at that and the infrastructure and everything. There's still a ton of work to do there.
Well, I think you're definitely on the right track, and, we know we're investing a lot of money in different places in town, and we have other economic zones in Johnson City, and this one just has such promise right here. I think what you're thinking of in the planning stages is this connectivity and how we avoid, any bottlenecks or anything that could be created with new development. So I think that's great, including the walking trails and the biking, that people could actually commute to work if they're working in that area in other ways besides their automobiles. So I'm very favorable for you to keep moving on.
Thank you.
This is actionable, is it not?
I'm sorry?
We do need to take a actual vote.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about it, and I really like the incorporation of the, whatever you want to call it, corporate style multifamily housing or city style condo living, whatever. I think it'll be great to have that within our city because we are missing it. And I think it's a component that once done and others see it to be successful will be duplicated. And I think there's definitely a demand for it.
Well, I think between higher ed and healthcare, you see a lot of people that are either, traveling nurses or PAs or PTs or something, and then within the university, you could imagine you have people who come and do a stint for like one academic year or two. So that certainly makes sense to me. I don't see anything on there that I initially have heartburn about. It kind of makes sense to move the stuff up to that roadway, especially given the fact that you have an active rail line back there. You can get a little bit of distance. I mean, it's not huge, but.
Are there any trees that we need to worry about?
No, they've already been taken care of.
All right, Commissioner Hunter, that will be the last time the chair recognizes you.
Thank you for all your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So if are there other questions, or is there a motion to approve the plan as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll
We have
second.
a motion and a second from the vice mayor, I heard.
Whoever.
Okay. And if there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commissioner, this takes you down to the manager's report. Ms. Ball came in yesterday and spent about a half a day with me and some time with a couple of the other staff members. Gave us a great opportunity for me to answer some questions that she had and for us to put together a strategy on how we're going to go about transferring information and getting her up to speed so that when she gets here, hopefully she'll have a pretty good, we're putting together what I'm going to label a quick reference sheet or a cheat sheet, whatever you want to call it.
Think you can get it
got
all
about
down to
each-
one sheet?
One for each division
Oh, okay.
of the city. That's just a really quick snapshot of here's who, what, when, where, why. Here's the challenges we've got coming. And got staff working on that. And I think Kathy and I both felt like that would give her a start to where she would at least know the general backbone of things, and she could fill in the gaps, if you will, as she needs to, and when the time arises. Recognizing the fact that for the first time in more than 20 years, the manager of this organization is not going to be an existing employee. And by, with myself and with John Campbell, I mean, we both had been here for several years or many years prior to becoming the manager, and there's a lot of institutional and community knowledge that's up here, and you've got a long tenured staff here. So there's a lot of things in this organization that are transmitted verbally or just intuitively that Kathy doesn't have that background. So we're starting to address that, and she feels comfortable with the approach that we're taking to do that. As you know, we are in need of hiring an HR director, and the process that we've gone through to this point, we've advertised, we've got an applicant pool. Several of us have narrowed that applicant pool down. We're going to send her the narrowed down list and let her get involved and let her actually be a part of the hiring process. We want to go ahead and get that person hired probably before she gets here, but it really needs to be her selection. As you might imagine, all department heads are important, but your lawyer, your HR person, and your finance person are three that you really need to go to and trust a lot. So I feel like it's really important that she's involved in that hiring process on that position. I think it'll be a smooth transition. I mean, she's excited to be here. She's got a good approach to things, and she's got a very diverse and extensive background. As y'all, I'm sitting here telling y'all stuff you already know. But we're doing everything we can to get her in a position so when she gets here, she's ready to go. The other thing we talked about, she's still got a job that she's obligated to for some time, and it's important to start getting her up to speed on some significant things, but we're not going to send her and copy her on everything because it's just too much. And so we're going to be very mindful of what we send and try not to send her too much and overwhelm her with trying to do her current employer justice and then look at another 6 hours worth of emails from us. I mean, it's not doable. So feel really good about that. All the departments have turned in their CIP information. Dustin got me the first draft of it this afternoon, so we'll be looking at that and have you hopefully a CIP in front of you here in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and keep that on schedule. That way that's good to go. The budget you've got in your package, you saw something from the comptroller recognizing us for doing it properly and meeting their minimal review and getting it in on time. So your current operating budget is as accepted and recognized by the state. We talked very little bit this morning about next year's operating budget, trying to get everybody in the mindset of get ready, start thinking about it. I'll certainly keep Kathy in communications on where we are. I don't see us getting started on the operating budget before the end of the year, but I want to make sure the process is there and everybody's got what they need to get the process started so that we don't get bogged down with that after the first of the year. I think it's been pretty much business as usual, and to be honest, it's going to be it'll be somewhat of a challenge, and real time consuming to get myself and all the department heads to take what's up here and get it on paper. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces. I mean, we do a lot of things every day. Then we've got the PBA, and we've got things that the JCDA is doing. And don't forget the Industrial Development Board and Aerospace Park. I mean, there's all kinds of tentacles that are out there that we're trying to capture and make sure that we get the transfer done. But I feel confident that we'll get it done, and she's happy with the approach that we've talked about taking, and so it's moving.
Two questions of Mr. Peterson, if I could. We had the presentation by BrightRidge tonight, and we have the ARPA money that we've kind of talked around. When can we get together to really look at nailing some of these things down? So we can have a thorough discussion among ourselves to see what direction we want to go.
I think we could probably be ready anytime starting next week.
And then I guess a question for the commission would be, to what degree do you involve the city manager now or the city manager who will be here in 60 days in that conversation?
I guess my thought is, how much do you want to incorporate into also your planning for your budget for the upcoming year, which I know obviously, it's
I would
annual.
recommend you use 0 of your ARPA
Right,
dollars in your budget. Yes, sir.
But there's 2 pots of money, but what you do on your annual budget may affect how you perceive what you do with your ARPA
Yes.
funds.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But I would echo the commissioner. I would like to see that conversation move forward. I think there could be value in your insights on it. And to your earlier point, Kathy has another job. I don't want to start calling on her too much now, but at the same time, the person who's going to be ultimately tasked with deploying on whatever those decisions are, I'd like to have involved.
Sir?
Well, we do have, it offered a possibility of how we could use some of those. So do we need further dialogue among the commission to see if we want to go this direction? To kind of get someplace that we can start nailing some of the stuff to the wall.
Staff has also been attending some webinars given by the Comptroller's Office. They're giving us some guidance, so hopefully we can discuss that with the city manager tomorrow. We are still under an interim final rule, so we don't yet know the final guidelines by the Treasury.
Final rule.
Right, so we're learning more with all of these webinars on what we can and cannot do. So we'll have a discussion with the city manager and kind of go over what we've learned from the Comptroller's Office and what the governor has been saying.
I think one of the things we learned in Chattanooga at TML was, the broadband, water, those kind of infrastructure
There's going to be
things.
an extraordinary hard push out of Nashville to invest all your money in water and sewer.
Yes.
We're in a great position financially and deployment-wise with water sewer.
You mean within that enterprise fund?
Yes.
And the broadband discussion in one of the comptroller's webinars was more geared, they said you must be the operator, so we need to really look at those guidelines carefully.
Are there other
We're not an
questions for?
operator, so.
I did have one other. Is there any update on the MOU with the county on the Ash Street Courthouse?
Yes, they sent us a draft yesterday. They had, their county-owned property group or committee had looked at it. They made some alterations to what you had previously approved and sent. There wasn't any real structural differences to it. I reviewed it. The only comment that I had was there's an addition that needs to be made to their version of it that recognizes that the end use of that building must be in conformance with what the governor's understanding of the end use of the building is, just to ensure that the governor and the state are happy with the end use. Other than that, the changes they made were,
Well, and it's probably not about the governor's happiness so much as it is us fulfilling what
Our
we asked them
obligation.
to. We asked them to invest in a thing.
Yes,
And
sir.
us living up to what we asked them to invest in.
yes, sir.
Which I assume when that happens, the governor may be happy, but that's not the.
Very good catch, yes, sir.
Is this, will this affect us being able to encumber the money that we need to meet the guidelines of when it has to be utilized?
The changes that they're dealing with,
The fact that we don't have the MOU, are we still proceeding?
we haven't
now?
slowed down a bit.
And they're acting on the MOU Monday, aren't they?
They are,
So, in theory, Monday, they would approve an MOU with whatever these modifications are, assuming your edit is accepted, we would need to revisit approval of the revised.
Yes, sir.
Which, if you have that in hand, I don't think you're probably as concerned about us needing a special called meeting. We're gonna be back together in 2 weeks, so.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and an update on that, the environmental analysis and review of the building's about completed. And from that, they will move into remediation. I mean, we've got asbestos and lead-based paint and all the things you would expect to find in a 100-year-old building. The design in terms of the mechanical systems is well underway, and they've nearing the completion of the modeling about space utilization and those types of things. So I think we're full speed ahead and making as much progress as we could.
Other questions for Mr. Peterson? If not, I'll turn to the far end of the platform here. Commissioner Murphy, do you have any comments to share before we adjourn?
Sir.
Vice Mayor?
No.
Well, no, I'll let you acknowledge what we did today.
All right. Yes, and thank y'all for coming out for the groundbreaking of the Judy and Doug Lowry spay neuter clinic that we will be adding to the animal shelter. It is quite a game changer in terms of helping control the animal population in Washington County, and we're very excited about it. We've had very generous donors who are funding it, and it's a very significant addition, to the shelter. So thank y'all. I'll keep you informed.
Commissioner Hunter?
No comment.
All right, well, thank you. Well, with that, this meeting is adjourned.